Every team in the AFL works incredibly hard each season to try and get to that top spot and end up earning a premiership. There may have been a number of factors which contributed to them winning, and sometimes fans may view them as not as deserving due to this. In today's video, I'm going to be going through each AFL premiership since the year 2000 and putting an asterisk on that premiership, basically explaining why that team didn't deserve that title. This is a jokey video and shouldn't be taken seriously. Some reasons will be more than a stretch, but I thought it would make for a fun and interesting video. Shout out to this channel, not going to say the name for obvious reasons, for inspiring this idea. Let me know what you think about the video. What's the biggest stretch that I try to make? Before we begin, only about 8% of you guys are actually subscribed. The number is going up steadily, let's keep growing this community, one sub at a time. Join the channel Discord, link in bio, so that you're always notified when I stream, upload videos, or just to get input on content I put out. Like the video if you enjoy, and without further ado, let's get into it. 2000, the Essendon Bombers. The Bombers were the only team truly in their prime during this season, and due to this they just strolled to the ultimate prize. This was a year where there were only one team at the height of its power, limiting the competition the Bombers came up against. North were exiting their best years, and Carlton had Kudafidis out with injury. 2001, the Brisbane Lions. In the 2001 Grand Final, Essendon led at halftime by 14 and let the Lions kick 6 goals to their 1 in the third quarter. The Essendon players became tired and let Brisbane run over the top of them. Facing an opponent with better endurance and pace through the midfield may have yielded a different result. Bit of a stretch, but I'll take it. 2002, the Brisbane Lions again. In the Grand Final, Anthony Rocker from Collingwood had a kick from about 40 out and thought he put it through for a goal, along with most of the crowd, but the goal umpire signalled it a behind, much to his disbelief. This was at a critical point in the game, with the Pies only down 3 at that point. This could have swung the game massively, as the Lions only won by an eventual 9 points. The game was also played in wet conditions, altering both teams' levels of play. 2003, the Brisbane Lions. The Lions actually lost to Collingwood in the qualifying final earlier that season by 15 points, an underwhelming showing from the reigning premiers. This just goes to show that their eventual win 3 weeks later was circumstantial, and could have swung either way, due to the Pies being a worthy contender at the time. If the Lions were playing in an elimination final, they would have gone in the first round of finals. 2004, Port Adelaide. In the prelim final against St Kilda, the Saints held the upper hand heading into the last quarter, leading by 1 point. The scoreline went back and forth until Gavin Wanganeen kicked a snap with 6 minutes left, which left Port up by 6 and with the win. He had a sore shoulder at the time, and it was a real possibility that he could have come off for medical treatment. Probably a more likely scenario in the modern game, some would say. 2005, the Sydney Swans. Leo Barry, you star. Who could forget such a moment? With West Coast pumping the ball into their forward line with mere seconds left, anything could have happened. Imagine if the ball had spilled loose, allowing the Eagles to have a shot on goal. Without Barry, it might have been a whole different ball game, knowing the number of close encounters and last-minute winners shared between the two teams. 2006, the West Coast Eagles. Ben Cousins was fueled by a certain vitamin and mineral, we'll say, powering him to an 18 disposal 2-goal performance, 2 goals which certainly changed the outcome of the game, West Coast winning by just 1 point. The Eagles also let Sydney come back from a 25-point deficit at halftime. 2007, the Geelong Cats. Do I really need to say much here? Port didn't turn up and got smashed. Geelong got an easy way out to put it short, and ended up beating the Power by a whopping 119 points. Port showed poor use of the ball, being the only team in AFL history to average more handballs than kicks. It was a training drill for the Cats, and one that was so easy, it gets an asterisk. 2008 Hawthorn. Their grand final opponents Geelong kicked an abysmal 11 goals, 23 points in their matchup, and couldn't buy an accurate kick, despite having 9 more scoring attempts than the Hawks. Even then, the Hawks didn't truly take control until the third quarter, and only won by 26 points, which in comparison to Geelong's wasted chances, seems like a bit of a let-off. 2009, the Geelong Cats. In the grand final, St Kilda held a 7-point lead at 3-quarter time, and went on to not kick a single goal in the last quarter, losing by 12 points. They just had to kick 1 or 2 goals in the entire quarter to secure the win. Due to this major blunder on the big stage, the Cats walked off with their second premiership in 3 years. 2010, the Collingwood Magpies. There's a lot I can say for this one, but the most obvious is the fact that the Saints and Pies didn't have extra time in their grand final draw, which would have definitely led to a different outcome one way or another in comparison to their redraw a week later. The Saints were the underdogs and did all they could to keep up with the Pies, and how were they rewarded? Told they had to repeat the same feat a week later for any chance of the premiership. 2011, the Geelong Cats. In the prelim final, Hawthorn held a 17-point lead over Collingwood heading into the last quarter of the game. They choked and allowed the Pies a matchup with the Cats, a matchup which favoured the Cats by a fair degree. The rivalry and competitiveness between the Hawks and Cats would have led to a much more competitive result in my opinion. 2012, the Sydney Swans. In the last quarter of the grand final, Hawthorn's captain and premier defender Luke Hodge had to go off due to a cut near his eye, leaving the Hawks' backline undermanned and vulnerable to Sydney's attacks. In the dying moments of the game, Jack Gunston also hit the post, and Brad Sewell had 2 opportunities that went begging. 2013, Hawthorn. In the grand final, Freo managed the lowest halftime score in the big game since 1960, and although they did end up making a game of it, they allowed the Hawks to easily kick up and get an early lead. 2014, Hawthorn again. In the prelim final that year, Port kicked an inaccurate 13 goals, 16 points. They let Roughhead kick a bag of 6 and still managed to nearly upset the Hawks. The Hawks were dead on their feet and just barely hung on, thanking that there wasn't another 5 minutes left of the game. 2015, Hawks again. West Coast actually beat Hawthorn in the first round of the finals in Western Australia at Domain. When they met again in the grand final, Hawthorn had the Victorian advantage and were able to capitalise on the home ground upper hand. 2016, the Western Bulldogs. I love this team, but how'd the AFL let a team from 7th place come and snatch the Premiership? GWS should have beaten them at home with a 14-point advantage midway through the last quarter, but coughed up a late goal to Jack McRae to let the Doggies through to the big dance. 2017, the Richmond Tigers. This one brings flashbacks, but in the grand final the Crows didn't have home ground advantage due to Vic bias, something which Adelaide capitalised on. I may sound salty, but I truly believe the result would have been different if it was played in SA. 2018, the West Coast Eagles. What more do I need to say? Dom Sheed kicks that last minute winner slightly right or slightly left, history is rewritten. One of the clutchest goals of all time, this premiership rides on that moment. 2019, Richmond. An absolute thumping of a grand final just went to show how inexperienced that GWS team was. And another team should have made it that year, like Collingwood. I remember this being the most boring finals game I've ever watched. Just no fight and gave the Tigers the game. 2020, Richmond again. COVID ravaged this year and left a lot of teams without key players and forced teams to play at unfamiliar grounds. The lack of fans destroyed home advantage for any team still playing at home, and as a whole, this season was a write-off. Doesn't count. 2021, the Melbourne Demons. Another year ravaged by COVID, not nearly as bad as the 2020 season, but still enough to affect the outcome of a high percentage of games that year. The grand final being played in WA was weird, and overall another year that doesn't count. Unlucky D's fans. 2022, the Geelong Cats. The Cats made a mockery of the Swans at the MCG, but arguably they should have been playing Collingwood, who put up a fight against them in the first week of finals. Losing to the Swans by just 1, the Pies would have had a home ground advantage and played the best against Geelong out of the finals teams. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Any asterisks I missed? This was a bit of a different video to usual, so let me know how you liked it. Hopefully you guys found it as fun as I did while writing it. The support recently has been out of this world. This is the last video I'm recording before I go away on holiday, so make sure you show it some love. Comment any video ideas down below and I'll make sure to check them out. Show the video and the Discord some love, just trying to create a bit more of a community with you guys. And make sure you guys like and subscribe for future Sportsfield content. Have a good one, and cheers.